Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bombs Breakdown. As always, we joined by Dylan. Dylan, to get started, I want to go over the Albion game first from midweek. 2-0 win for us. Was it 2-0? I think so, yeah. For some reason, I thought it was
That sounds
3-0.
right.
But what did you make of that game and what did you make of our performance there as well?
I'll be completely honest, I didn't get the best view of the game just being right there behind the goal. And I was kind of walking around talking with people, taking in the moment. But from what I watched, we looked really good. I was impressed by some of the youngsters who came in. But all in all, I thought it was a really fun night. As I said last week, I love the early rounds of the Open Cup. I think it's a lot of fun. So that's for me. That was kind of my big takeaways. But how about yourself? What did you think?
Yeah, it was good to see some of the new guys. I would have liked to see possibly maybe a few more of the academy players. I know obviously we had Javi, Duran starting the game. I know there's just a few more who were assigned to academy contracts, so I wouldn't mind seeing them on the bench possibly come the end. But I think also it shows that how kind of Nate Miller values the Open Cup and doesn't want to kind of see an upset early on too. And obviously moving on to the next round as well versus Seattle. How do you think that game's going to go as well? I know we're obviously not going to prove that now, but what do you make of getting Seattle in the next round?
Seattle are flying high. If they play their first team, which I sincerely doubt they would play their full first team, I don't think we would stand much of a chance, to be honest with you. But like I said, I don't think they'll play their full first team. They've already announced it will be at Starfire Stadium, which is right by SeaTac Airport, which, if you're familiar with the area, is like not close to downtown Seattle at all. So I think the big question will be how seriously does Seattle take that game. I wanted to express my personal disappointment that the game was not. We weren't drawn against Portland. Had we been drawn against Portland, I think I would have had no choice but to go up there for the game. So, but I'm very excited. It's always good to get an MLS opponent. And I still haven't ruled out going up.
Yeah, it's a tough one too. I know MLS teams don't always value the US Open Cup that much, and I know kind of I mean for me, I compare it to kind of the FA Cup in England, and I feel like English kind of top tier teams kind of do value the FA Cup and the additional cups to the normal league. So it's a bit strange for me as far as MLS teams not really caring too much. But as not being a fan of an MLS team, I don't really mind too much. I guess it kind of gives us more of a chance to go far and to win that next game as well. But moving on to the Tulsa game, which has just passed, a very very hard fought 2-1 win. I know we weren't too happy on the locals last call. Right after the game, had a bit more time to kind of digest the game and think about it a bit more. But kind of, have your thoughts on the game changed since kind of post game straight away?
I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd say they changed that much. Maybe softened a little bit. I honestly, I think I said this to you right before we recorded the last call that like I was still kind of taking it all in just because the way the game ended kind of blew me away, honestly. But yeah, I think I've definitely kind of in the rewatch seen some things I didn't maybe like register in real time, and I feel more generally positive about it than I did on Saturday. But it was great to be back in Torero. It was a beautiful day. It wasn't too hot. I know those day kickoffs can be a bit much, but it was really nice.
Yeah, that's one thing I know. Kind of as a fan watching the game live, you can kind of see it differently to kind of watching it after or kind of being a neutral. And I know we kind of saw that John Morrissey from USL Tactics kind of spoke highly of us how we performed that game. And I think after the game, I was kind of contemplating like, really, have we improved since that Detroit game, the very first game of the season? And honestly, looking back on it, I think that probably was our best performance so far, albeit the scoreline may not show it, compared to, say, the 3-0 win versus Phoenix Rising. Kind of a lot of things I think we've improved on, especially seeing kind of Conway and Damas kind of getting that first chance to really form a partnership as well. I still think the attack is missing a few things here and there, but it's still, again, we've created plenty of chances, and I know we've spoken about before as far as that if Charlie Adams scores that penalty early on, it would have been a completely different game and definitely would have opened up Tulsa way more. But because we missed out, they're kind of able to sit in and make it very hard for us to break them down. Aside from kind of Conway, Damas, kind of anyone else who stood out for you from the Tulsa game as well?
Yeah, I thought Charlie had an excellent game back. He had the assist, I think, on Conway's goal. But generally was pulling the strings. I thought when he came out of the game, that didn't help us that much. And I am hopeful he's ready to play 90 again because I think we miss his ability to move the ball forward when he's not on the field. So he stood out for me a lot.
Yeah, no, Charlie's a great playmaker, and I think kind of people. I mean, again, free kicks and corners and stuff may not have been great from the weekend. I know set pieces are still kind of an area that we need to work on a little bit, but no, great ball in for Conway's first goal. And again, Charlie's kind of our playmaker, gets kind of the game ticking, and I know Corona's kind of done some of that this season already, but I think Charlie's a bit more mobile. Kind of progressing the ball forward as well, which always does great. And again, for me, Bodley continues to look great, and obviously Moon on the opposite side as well. So fullbacks, I think where we are set going forward, and that's probably why we're not seeing as much as Elijah as fullback as we kind of would have predicted early on the season. Partly because he's kind of needed at centre back, but Bodley's done very well when he's kind of played there as well. But moving into kind of New Mexico, and so far this season, they aren't kind of looking great as far as the table looks right now. They are bottom of the conference with only 3 points, although they've only played 3 games this season so far as well. They beat Miami FC 1-0 to begin the season, and they lost 1-0 to Oakland Roots, who again are still a very good team. In the midweek as well, they beat UDA Soccer 6-0 in the US Open Cup, although I honestly have no idea how good UDA Soccer are. To be honest, I've never heard of them, and I don't believe they're a NISA team, so I don't know what league they are, possibly NPSL, something like that. And then they actually lost to Monterey Bay this past weekend 4-2. Looking back on the kind of Monterey Bay game, and I'm not sure if you watched too much of the other footage though, what do you make of them this past weekend against Monterey?
They looked very shaky, I thought. They scored early in the game, and for maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes looked solid. But once that first goal for Monterey went in, I really never felt like New Mexico got a foothold in the game again. The final was 4-2, but New Mexico's second goal even came in extra time, and it was, I'm pretty sure, just a bad mistake from Monterey's defenders. So, yeah, I don't know. So, a kind of an uncharacteristic New Mexico team so far this year. I think I'm used to them being a very solid team, but they just look so susceptible to the fast break. They couldn't deal with the press. So not a great performance from New Mexico. But they've also been on the road all season so far. So their homecoming, maybe they'll get it together more.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're into their fourth game of the season now, their first home game, and we always know how kind of shaky we are on the road as well. So hopefully our fortune changes a little bit away this time. Like you mentioned, the 2 last season they finished 5th in the Western Conference. They ended up losing 2-0 to Sacramento in the first round of the playoffs. But again, New Mexico usually are a team kind of up near the top of the conference. So it's been a kind of strange start to the season for them. No doubt, I think they'll turn it around and they'll probably finish strong. But honestly, like I said, looking back at looking back at the Monterey Bay game, they didn't look great at all. Maybe because they were kind of missing Portillo in the middle. And that midfield, I know we spoke about a little bit beforehand, is that the midfield looked very kind of shaky, and even their backline as well. And we'll kind of move on to how they play here again. Second game in a row, we're playing it's a back four. They basically play a 4-3-3, although the midfield it was a little bit all over the place in the Monterey game. I know the front three will be a front three, and they'll kind of interchange a little bit with kind of Greg Hurst being at one middle guy. And we know how good Santi Moore is cutting in from the left-hand side as well. Again, very attack-minded midfield, which, again, should help us, I think, if we do kind of, again, try and tack down the middle. There'll be lots of space there as well. I had that one defensive midfielder in Hamilton. And I like the left-back, Suggs, quite a lot. And again, very physical for an attacking fullback. Anyone else, as far as in their team, who you think is going to stand out? I know it's tough. None of them really look great in the Monterey Bay game. Anyone else that I've not mentioned?
Well, first of all, Alex Tambakis, their goalkeeper, had a horrible game against Monterey, but he's normally a pretty solid goalkeeper, so I wouldn't expect him to put in that kind of performance again. And then Chris Wehan is a big guy for them, scoring a bunch of goals. He has been, I don't know if he's been with New Mexico as long as they've been around, but he was there, I think, with their first team and maybe left for a year and came back. But he's a very central figure for them. And I expect he'll, you know, if they do good things in the final third, I expect Chris Wehan to be involved.
And the another guy here that we've not mentioned, Daniel Bruce. I know he came off the bench. I think Bruce has been with their team since 2019. Fellow Englishman as well, actually. Funny story, actually, when I came to America on a scholarship, we were actually part of the same kind of tryout to come over here. And look at him now. He's obviously gone on to do way better things than myself. And another one here, I think it's Alex Wagner, came on for his debut in the Monterrey Bay game. But I know lots of guys at New Mexico are very kind of fond of him, and they're hoping he can go and have a great season too. And again, here, susceptible from counterattacks, defense looks shaky. Those kind of back to, I know they're kind of the Will Seymour, very kind of experienced defender, but those back two didn't look great that game. And all 4 goals from that Monterrey Bay game came from errors. And I know Sam Gleadle kind of got them dancing around, but again, that back line is kind of one we want to kind of attack and press. But they're moving into their predicted lineup. Are we assuming they stick with the same lineup from the last game or very similar?
I mean, I think that's the best we can do. I wouldn't be surprised to see Portillo come back in. As you said, their midfield was all over the place against Monterrey, and this is again their home opener. They'll want to have a good showing. Portillo's a big guy for them. I would expect that might be the only change, though.
Who do you think Portillo comes in from that lineup?
Probably, that's a hard question, honestly, because that front three, I don't know if you can change it. Rivas didn't have a great game against Monterrey, but as you've mentioned, is a creative guy for them. But I also don't see them dropping Chris Wehan. So maybe Greg Hurst drops. He hasn't had a great season so far this year, and they mix it up top. I really don't know. If I had to guess, though, I would guess probably Rivas comes out to give a little more solidity in the midfield. But it's a tough call. What do you think?
I think you look at Hamilton, he's kind of the only defensive midfielder in that last game. Rivas, again, did drop into that kind of defensive midfielder role once Hamilton did come out. So, again, if they don't drop Wehan, I think possibly Moreno comes out and Wehan goes back up top and they go to midfield 3 of Hamilton, Rivas, and Portillo. And I'm happy to stick with that. But if you want to walk us through the rest of the lineup here as far as how we think things are going to go.
Sure, yeah. So we'll start at the back. Alex Tambakis, like I said, has been a pretty solid USL Championship goalkeeper for a few years now. Don't expect him to have a bad game again. The back line, Suggs, who you pointed out, will be probably playing left back. And then Ryden and Seymour in the middle, and Harry Swartz in the back line. I think Harry Swartz might have been the one who scored that goal like really, really late against us last year in New Mexico. I might be wrong about that. Anyway, I think that's how the defense will shape up, though.
And then we mentioned the midfield here. Probably we'll go with Hamilton, Rivas, and Portillo. And then that leaves the front 3 here of Santi Moore, Greg Hurst, and Wehan. Moreno may come in for one of those. I don't know. I think Santi Moore is too good to leave out. But then the only thing is, I think Greg Hurst, he's not had a great season so far, but he's fairly big. He'll more likely be the target man, although those front 3 kind of do mix and match all over the place. And then moving into our lineup here, I think as the season's gone on a bit, I know we've kind of mixed the match a little bit. I think we're slowly getting to kind of realize what our kind of best 11 may be. I know it's still early days too, and I know kind of a few injuries here and there, so it's hard to see that best 11 at any point in the season. But kind of, do you think there's going to be any big changes from this past weekend as far as our starting lineup goes?
I think Joe Corona will come back in for Colin. Other than that, no, I don't see any big changes.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of spoken about Simba as well, but I know that kind of starting with the cover get here, the back 3 of what Carl Adams, Elijah, and Stoneman looks like the preferred back 3 now. Obviously with Ebby out for the season essentially, and I know Simba will get his chances here and there, more likely come off the bench, but I think it's very hard to kind of replace any of those back 3 there unless Nate decides to play Elijah as a wing back, although we've seen Adrian Perez been used as a wing back now too. So I think that's an area we are somewhat short on. Again, is either Nate decides to bring another centre back or another full back, but I think it's either or, and so I don't think he brings in both. Because I don't think we are missing too much in depth, honestly, although an injury to one of the full backs or a centre back, and I believe we will be in trouble there. Like you mentioned there too, midfield of Corona and Charlie, more than likely. Obviously, dropping Colin Martin. What have you made of him so far this season?
I think Collins had a bit of a slow start to the season this year, and it's been accentuated by the fact that somebody of Joe Corona's quality has come in. So not only is Colin not playing his best soccer, when he's not in the team, Joe Corona and Charlie Adams are already like firing on all cylinders this season. That's not to say I don't think Colin will get there, but I just, you got to play with your hot hand, and he has not looked his best. He's made some silly fouls, gotten some bad yellow cards, and I haven't really seen the passing range that I've come to expect from Colin Martin. So yeah, I don't know. I not his best so far.
Yeah, it's been strange, and I think Colin had an injury in pre-season, so maybe for him, kind of having a bit of a slow start to the season stems from that, kind of not having a full pre-season, playing in games. So I'm not too sure there, but obviously, like you said there too, that we've got players like Joe Corona, Charlie Adams who can step up and kind of fill in that role. And again, without Colin in the team, and I think we really missed too much there. And then moving into our attack, more than likely we'll go with a front three, but I know from the Tulsa game it was more of a front two with Toomey in behind, kind of filling in that Guido role. Are we assuming that Toomey, Conway, and Damas are starting next game as well?
Yeah, I think so. Unless Guido is fit and ready to go, which we obviously won't know until the lineup is announced on what is it, Saturday. So yeah, I think Toomey will start again. He had probably his best game of the season against Tulsa. He was getting on the ball and in between the lines and looking lively. And then yeah, I know that Damas didn't get on the score sheet, but I think he's pretty much undroppable at this point. I think we've agreed on that for a couple weeks now. And then Conway, he scored a very ungraceful goal, but they all count. And actually, the slow mo is really funny if you haven't watched that yet. I think Loyal tweeted it out. It goes off his like thigh into his face and then in the back of the net. But again, they all count. But I thought the link up there between Conway and Damas looked really good. Better than the link up did between Collier and Damas in Phoenix. Granted, we were at home, but I just think that Damas and Collier both kind of like to head down, dribble, whereas Conway's a little more adept with the flicks around the corner. We saw a little bit of that, him comboing with Damas and them kind of getting close to each other up front to play off each other. And I think that was a big part of what helped our attack look good this time. So I do expect that those will be the other two up front.
Yeah, I think Conway's slowly starting to kind of fill into that. I wouldn't say target man role, but kind of the hold up player. And I know we kind of this whole season going to be about can we replace Carvacell, and I know early on everyone thought, oh, we're bringing in Collier, he'll be the replacement, the completely different player. And then when Damas came in, we are like, okay, Damas is going to be the replacement. But again, Damas, as much as we love him as a player, he's a great player, completely different to Carl as well. But I know from what I've seen, I think Evan's kind of showing glimpses of being that hold-up player. I think it's giving him more game time, and playing with Damas will only help him get better too. Again, you can only get better playing with better players. So I think it's inevitable there as well. Going back to that goal as well, for if you haven't seen it, it reminded me of Javier Hernandez or Chicharito scored a very, very similar goal, I believe, against Manchester City for Man United in the Community Shield not too long ago. But if you want to look that up on YouTube, it's a very similar kind of kick, comes off his shin into his face into the goal. But as a striker, a goal's a goal. All that matters is your name's on the score sheet come the end. And then moving into the key matchups and things to look out for. As always, I've kind of put in the over rhetorical questions here, more open-ended questions. I've got in here, can Damas and Conway build on their partnership? Can we attack with more conviction? I think that was it's been our issue early on. I know we're kind of a very slow team as far as build-up goes, kind of keep the ball, move around that kind of back line and then push forward there. But as we saw from the Monterey Bay game versus New Mexico are kind of very susceptible from the counter-attacks if we can attack quickly. I think that's give us more opportunity to kind of get an early goal too. Then here, can we limit counter-attacks? Again, Tulsa were very good on the counter. I think they could have easily scored more than one goal in that game. They did miss some kind of clear chances as well. So I think we kind of count ourselves a little bit lucky that they only got one goal come in the end. And then the last two here, can we transition quicker to take advantage of New Mexico's shaky back line? And we've already touched on as far as how kind of shaky they've looked so far. So can we kind of take advantage of that? And then lastly here, can we score early on to open up the game? Which is, again, I think it's been our issue early on. I know from the Tulsa game. We looked great in the first 15, lots of pressure, kind of everyone getting up high and quick attacks, but after that kind of died down a little bit. But kind of going off those questions there, anything else that you'd add or anything to kind of elaborate on any of those things I've spoken about there as well?
Um, I don't know that I'd add much, but I would want to elaborate on the transition quicker question, because I think there were a few times against Tulsa where we got ourselves into a good position and then the ball would just go backwards almost as if that was the only option, even though there probably were options forward. And as you've alluded to, New Mexico had looked shaky, and they got popped for 4 counterattack goals against Monterey. So I would like to see us transition quickly. I think that's something we've not done well this season, but we're going to have to do. And if we do well, we could see us getting quite a few good chances at this game. But yeah, I think we need to be willing to kind of just go quick, turn and burn, as I always ask for them to do in the stadium, and they never ever ever do. So that's my big thing.
Yeah, I know it's always been kind of grumbling with the fans for the past few seasons as far as the old famous horseshoe or the U kind of passing the ball around the back and then going again. And like you said, there was points in the weekend where we kind of take on a few players, get to like the edge of the box, and then play it all the way back and then slow it down again. It just seems like you're kind of wasting the advantage of getting the ball in their half. And I know it's all about kind of keeping possession, kind of getting them out of shape, but at times too, it felt like it wasn't necessary as well. And then with New Mexico too, would you say New Mexico are going to be the weakest team we've played against so far? Where would you kind of rank them as far as difficulty of games we played so far? Obviously, they're going to be their home opener too, so away from home makes it a little bit tougher. But kind of taking away the kind of other stuff around it, like that, and that us being away on purely their team, do you think this is the easiest game we've got so far? Where would you rank it against the other teams?
I think from the perspective of the collection of the 25 or 24, 23, however many individuals make up their roster, no, this is not the weakest team we've played thus far this season. But from a team structure perspective, soccer is a collective sport. You have to be able to work together as an 11, as an 18, a squad. Yeah, I think this is the squad, the most at sea squad we're playing so far this season. They do not have their feet under them. As you've said, it's their home opener, but removing that detail, they really do not seem to have. I don't think we kind of, in talking about what their lineup looks like, we're unsure, and I don't think they're sure either. I think they're still figuring out what is their best team, what's their best shape, how are they going to score goals. So, from the collection of players, no, I don't think this is the worst collection of players we've seen thus far. But from a team perspective, yeah, I think this is the team that is struggling the most that we'll have come across thus far.
Yeah, and I think our struggles this season have kind of come from breaking down a team that likes to sit in and has a kind of solid midfield. But looking at the team and kind of comparing where we can kind of get their weaknesses, that midfield is very weak for them, and they're kind of back too. And I think that's been our struggle so far, is playing against teams that are very kind of solid down that spine of the team. So looking at that, that should be. Although I don't want to say speak too soon here and we go and get thumped on the weekend, which for my prediction here, that's not the case. But we'll roll into predictions now as well. I'll let you go first this time. What are you predicting for the game? And as always, goal scorers.
Well, I'm gonna deviate from my normal positivity oriented prediction scheme here, just because I don't know what it is, but sometimes I just get a feeling about a game where it's like I don't know. It's their home opener. We've struggled in New Mexico in the past. The altitude, the heat, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a heavy field because it's a really shitty baseball field, but we just don't seem to play well there. Um, I would like to see us play on the break, like I've said already. But I'm going to go 2-2. I just think that New Mexico will be amped up. And I think that this is, again, I just don't think this is a place we play very well. So for us, I'll go Damas, and I'll go Bodley on the break, specifically a Moon to a Bodley assist. I think, the wing back to wing back on the break. I would love to see that. But then for New Mexico, I think Greg Hurst opens his account for the season. And then Weehan, it just always seems to pop up against us. So
You're getting deeper now. We're going into who's going to get the assist for the goal now. I'm not prepared for that one.
I've had that on my mind. The whole talking about the playing on the break. I've had that on my mind all episode, so I had to get it in there.
Or maybe for the next one, we'll have to get in who's going to get the assist for these goals.
But then we'll go hockey assist.
I'm going to go 2-1 here. I guess 3-1 last game was only 2-1. I know we had clean sheets early on in the season. I'm not feeling as confident as I was about our back line. Now we're going into we're still early on the season. I'm going to go with Toomey. Finally scores his first goal of the season. I think Damas, again, is always looked dangerous. No doubt will kind of get a goal sooner or later. And then I'm going with Santi Moore. Again, we know how good he is from Phoenix too. But it's tough, again, like you mentioned there, it's a home opener. New Mexico have always been a good team. I think people are writing them off early on the season. And I mean, even us, we've been writing them off already in this episode here. So again, you never know them. Like I said, the USL Championship, especially the Western Conference, it's so tough. Like there is no easy games. And we saw from Tulsa, I think a lot of people thought beginning of the season Tulsa would be one of those kind of bottom teams. And again, they had made a good show in themselves this past weekend and the season already. So it's going to be very tough there to, especially in Mexico, like I said, the baseball field as well. You never know. But anything else to add before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to the New Mexico supporters. I know they'll be on the other side on the field this weekend, but we've historically had like really good relationship with them, and they are super active in their community. The Curse, Black Diamonds. There's like an aliens related one I can't remember the name of, but anyway, I just wanted to say I want to beat them this weekend, but shout out to the New Mexico fans. I hope you guys watch this.
And that's the most important thing. Obviously, we like to see kind of the relationships of our supporters group. I know some of the other ones we played already this season, we may not be the biggest fans of.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
There's plenty we can touch on there. But that wrap things up there again. We will be back live again not live, but the another episode out next week going over the Tampa Bay game. That's the next one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And that'll be, I said, there's no easy games in the USL Championship, but we'll be previewing that one next week. And then, as always, another Locals Last Call after Tampa Bay game. But again, thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you again very soon.